Hello and welcome to this webinar, which is focused on the touring strand of National Lottery project grants. I'm Cassie Catchpole, Relationship Manager for Touring in the South East.
I'm Jill Brown, Senior Manager for Touring, based in the Midlands.
I'm Gloria Lind, Relationship Manager for Touring in the North.
We will walk through the definition of touring, including how we fund touring, the criteria for the programme, the application process, what happens once you've made a submission, how we make decisions, and finish with answering some key questions that have come up recently now that we've launched the programme. Once you've watched this webinar, you may want to book onto one of our Q&A sessions in order to explore the touring strand further. Details on these will be coming soon and will be on the Arts Council website, but please make sure you watch this webinar first before you book on, as your question may already be answered. This webinar is aimed at applicants that are not part of our national portfolio. National portfolio organisations can also apply to the touring strand of project grants, but there are limitations to the number of times national portfolio organisations can apply and/or receive project funding. More information on this can be found on the Arts Council website, or please discuss this with your relationship manager. Arts Council will be reviewing the programme and processings, gathering and taking on board feedback, and will be monitoring the data as the programme continues. We then plan to implement changes later in the year if appropriate. So, on to an overview of the National Lottery Project Grants Programme and the touring strand. We define touring activity as the distribution of the same product, programme or event to at least 2 different locations. We can support a variety of touring work through project grants that can involve live performances, international work, streaming, hybrid models, exhibitions, workshops, digital distribution, or a combination of these things. In project grants, we can fund touring through the dedicated touring strand for projects more than £30,000, project grants under £30,000, or as part of nationally significant projects over £100,000. This webinar will focus on those applicants wishing to apply to the touring strand, which is primarily focused on touring and distribution of live work. Touring activity can include digital distribution such as streaming. But if you apply to the touring strand, the primary focus of your project must be touring work to physical places.
You can apply to the touring strand for both new work and for restaging a previous production or event and touring it to new audiences and venues. These will follow exactly the same process, which we will lay out shortly. To apply to the touring strand, your project needs to be for more than £30,000, and to note there is no maximum threshold for the fund. If you're applying for a project for under £30,000 that includes touring activity, then this will be allocated to an area panel for decision rather than the National Touring Panel. The project should focus on work that is ready to tour rather than research and development, or be a speculative project. We wouldn't expect to support testing or previewing work through the touring strand. You should consider applying to the main project grants programme for this kind of work. You can apply to tour work across England, the other UK nations, as well as internationally, as we have dropped the 15% rule that was previously in place. However, there are some restrictions about applying to take work to the Edinburgh festivals, which will be covered later. Applicants self-select on Grantium whether they want to apply to the touring strand of project grants. If applying for less than £30,000, then you won't get the option to tick the touring strand box, and the application will be considered in the area that the applicant is based. If you apply for over £30,000 and don't tick the touring strand box, then the project will go straight to full application and be allocated to an area panel for a decision. The touring strand of project grants now includes an expression of interest stage. This gives applicants an opportunity to outline their proposed project and gives us a sense of the potential reach, the partners involved, and how the project embeds our investment principles, particularly inclusivity and relevance and environmental responsibility. Having an expression of interest stage enables us to give an earlier indication as to whether a tour is likely to be funded or not, and aims to support the applicant's discussions with partners and venues as the tour gets firmed up. Through our other funding programmes and strands, we've noted that bringing in an expression of interest stage results in a much higher success rate. It also allows us to consider projects in relation to the budgets available, and it means that applicants don't waste time and energy making applications that are unlikely to be funded. You'll be asked to fill in a tour schedule as part of your expression of interest and full application. You should tell us whether each tour booking is confirmed, which means that the booking dates and contractual arrangements are confirmed, subject to project grants funding, and probably won't change, or expected, which means that there has been a discussion between you and the venue or partner who understands the likely contractual arrangements and has agreed to pencil a date. We don't expect you to have fully confirmed your tour by the time you submit an expression of interest. However, if you are invited to make a full application, we would expect the dates and contractual arrangements to be mostly confirmed. An unconfirmed tour schedule does not automatically mean that we will consider your activity major risk or that your tour schedule is unrealistic. However, if a large proportion of your tour dates are expected and/or you haven't discussed the project with the intended venue partners, then you must explain how realistic your proposed tour schedule is. You can tell us about the experience you and your partners have of securing tours and strong partnerships with the proposed venues, producers, and how you'll manage the project and make sure it is achievable. We advise against submitting a fully speculative tour schedule in the hope of updating this later. If your expression of interest contains only expected dates, or there is little evidence of relationships with the venues, we may consider your project to be major risk or underdeveloped. In this case, we would be unlikely to invite you to make a full application. If we invite you to make a full application, the tour schedule you provide in your expression of interest will pull through into your application form. When you make your application, you should update your tour schedule to include any new or rescheduled dates, or to tell us if any expected dates have now been confirmed. In addition to meeting the standard criteria for project grants, as explained in the How to Apply guidance, you should also consider the following: any plans for developing or maintaining longer-term links between the touring work, creative and cultural practitioners, promoters and venues, and where relevant, tell us about any research and development or previews you have undertaken already for this activity and how this was supported. This helps us consider the demand for the project and the legacy it will have once the project has been completed. If you are planning on touring to any of the Arts Council's current priority places, then please tell us this. You don't have to include priority places as part of a touring project, but it is useful for us to know if activity is going to happen there. Details of our priority places can be found on the Arts Council website.
Once you've been invited to submit a full application, you'll get to tell us much more about the project, how it uses Arts Council's investment principles, and how it relates to the outcomes of our 10-year strategy, Let's Create. At the expression of interest stage, you told us about how the project specifically relates to the investment principles of inclusivity and relevance and environmental responsibility. At full application stage, you'll be able to tell us more about this. You can also choose to tell us about how you have considered the other investment principles, ambition and quality and dynamism. If you are applying for over 100,000, you must tell us about how your project relates to all 4 principles. At full application stage, you will also complete a detailed budget. We suggest you provide as much detail as you can about your expected earned income. For example, if you're expecting income on a box office split, tell us the calculation your share of the split is based on and how your track record will support you to achieve this. If your income includes ticket sales, show how many tickets you expect to sell and the cost of each ticket. We suggest that you break down both your production costs and touring costs separately in your budget. Breaking down international touring income and costs in your budget helps Arts Council England to understand how we are supporting international work over the coming years. For the touring strand, there are 3 mandatory documents. You need to attach an audience development plan to help show that you have thought about the people in each place you are touring and how you will make sure your project reaches them. This should be more developed than a standard marketing plan. You might want to consider including information about why the activity is relevant to your venues and audiences, details about who you are reaching in terms of location, participants, and any learning or participatory opportunities, any research you have undertaken to understand the people in each tour location. The other attachments are a detailed work plan for the project, including milestones and key review dates. This is an opportunity to go into more depth than the timeline in the application allows. Partnership agreements between the lead organisation and all key partners involved in the project, if relevant. A cash flow for the project. As we said earlier, we can support international activity through project grants, and that includes through the touring strand. For this refreshed version of project grants, we have removed the requirement that a maximum of 15% of the total number of tour dates could take place outside England. However, we can only fund activities or events taking place in the other UK nations or further afield where you can demonstrate longer term benefit to creative and cultural practitioners, organisations, participants and audiences living in or organisations based in England. This could be through residencies as part of the creation process, through prior or onward touring, or through cultural exchange projects that form part of the tour or its legacy. If you apply for international touring work, then you need to tell us clearly in your application what the benefit to England will be. You can find out more in the International Project Grants information sheet on our website. You should also note that we can only accept applications from individuals or organisations based, i.e. living in England or the wider United Kingdom. We don't normally directly fund applications that include taking work to the Edinburgh Festival Fringe, although they can be included in a wider tour schedule. An expression of interest where presenting in Edinburgh is the focus of the activity is unlikely to be invited to full application. However, we are committed to increasing opportunities for international exchange and market development for creative practitioners and arts and cultural organisations based in England. We have supported Horizon Performing Arts Showcase for England-based individuals and organisations to present work, including theatre, dance, circus and live art, within the Edinburgh Festival Fringe. You can find out more on the Horizon website, www.horizonshowcase.uk. We can also support incoming international tours. However, as noted, we can only accept applications from individuals or organisations based or living in England or the wider United Kingdom. If you're based outside of England but within the UK, you can apply to tour your work into England.
So, what then happens to the expression of interest and full application? It takes up to 4 weeks to make decisions on the expression of interest for the touring fund. although panels take place every 2 weeks, so you may get a decision sooner. Panels for the expression of interest include representatives from our 5 areas alongside national colleagues, including those from the touring, international and the enterprise and innovation teams. If you are invited to apply, you will have up to 12 weeks to submit a full application, but can submit at any point during this period. So you could submit the application within a few days of receiving a decision on your expression of interest if you feel the project is ready to go. When we receive your application, it then takes up to 12 weeks to make a decision, but we will hopefully be able to let you know sooner. If you are not invited to apply, then you are welcome to resubmit another expression of interest, and there is no limit on the number of times you can put an expression of interest in. As previously noted, NPOs applying do have restrictions, so should check the guidance and/or discuss this with their relationship manager before making an expression of interest. Whether you're invited to apply or not, you will receive a feedback statement, highlighting elements that you might want to consider strengthening or refining, either as part of a new expression of interest or if invited to submit a full application. Feedback should be considered carefully, as the panel will use this to inform decision-making at full application stage. Full applications for the touring strand are then appraised against the criteria set out in the How to Apply guidance for project grants. These appraisals then go to our national touring panel, which includes representatives from across the organisation, include colleagues from each area and from our diversity, touring, international and enterprise and innovation teams. We will use the information provided in your expression of interest, your application form, and any information we hold about you to make a decision. We will consider the quality and range of the work alongside the places the work tours to and the people that experience the work, as well as how realistic your tour schedule is. We may also get in touch with some of the venues on your tour schedule to discuss your proposed tour and its relevance to their venue if appropriate. We have some specific advice on how to include rural touring dates and schemes in the tour schedule and how museums can be supported to tour too. This is included in the touring information sheets available on the website. And now, on to some common questions.
As an established touring organisation artist, I want to apply to create and tour activity. Do I have to split activity into 2 applications? Not necessarily. There will be some exceptions where we will accept applications for both making and touring, particularly where the applicant is able to evidence demand for the tour and that strong partnerships are already in place. However, the main focus of the activity should be on the touring aspects. Can I apply for a time-sensitive application? In exceptional circumstances, you can request for a time-sensitive application, and the process will remain the same as it has done for all project grants. However, you will still need to submit an expression of interest in the first instance. If invited to full application, applicants can request for an application to be submitted through the time-sensitive process, although the decision will be down to each area to decide whether this request can be fulfilled, taking into account our capacity to assess it at short notice. The application would still have to go through the EOI stage regardless of whether time-sensitive permission was agreed. I want to apply for over £100,000 project which is nationally significant but also includes touring. Which fund should I apply to? If the focus of your project is primarily on sector development or focused on a particular moment in time, for example, the City of Culture, then it is likely to be a better fit for the nationally significant strand of National Lottery project grants, even if it includes some touring and distribution. If the project is focused on distributing work across multiple venues or sites and includes a strategic approach to touring a particular genre of work or audience development, then it is likely to be a better fit for the touring fund. I want to tour internationally with no dates in England. Is this eligible? Yes. The 15% rule is no longer in place and applicants can apply for any amount of international activity. However, you still need to demonstrate public benefit for artists and/or audiences in England, either in the short or longer term. Can I apply to the touring fund for only one international date? For example, an activity happening at a festival which may be shown multiple times. We state that a tour is defined as activity happening in 2 or more different locations. A festival constitutes one location, so wouldn't be eligible under the touring fund. However, an applicant could apply for this under the main National Lottery project grant strand.
Thanks for listening. If you still have questions and/or would like to find out more about how to apply, you can find guidance on how to apply and information sheets, including our touring information sheet, on our website. You can contact customer services for project grants advice. They can advise you on the eligibility of your activity, discuss any parts of the application that you are unsure of, and help you to use the online application form. You can also sign up to one of our Q&A sessions with members of the touring team, which are coming soon via the website www.artscouncil.org.uk.